Welcome to Cool Talk, and this is part 2 of the Theodore Roosevelt presidency. Let's get right into it. Roosevelt was elected by an overwhelming majority for his second term. Roosevelt read the popular book The Jungle by Upton Sinclair that depicted the horrible conditions of the meat industry. Well, Roosevelt, horrified as everybody else, decided to act. He said there had to be more sanitary conditions when it came to the meat industry. So what did he do? He passed the Meat Inspection Act. Well, he didn't stop there. Back in those days, there was cocaine in the Coca-Cola. There was cocaine in toothache drops. There was opium in cough medicine. Roosevelt decided there had to be more sanitary and, of course, healthy conditions in our food and medicine. So he passed the Food and Drug Administration. It's still around today. Now, when Roosevelt was a young man, he loved boxing. When he became president, he continued to box. He'd invite professional boxers to the White House to practice and spar. What happened? One day, he got punched in the eye. Later on, he had a detached retina, and he became blind in that one eye. So he stopped boxing and started participating in jiu-jitsu. Roosevelt loved to go on safaris and hunt. Well, there was that famous story where he did not want to shoot one poor defenseless bear. That story became legendary, and they created a toy about it. You all know who it is, the teddy bear. Around that time, Japan had taken control of Manchuria and Korea, and Russia, feeling threatened, declared war. Roosevelt invited them to the United States to have peace negotiations. He could barely get the representatives to stand together for one photo. It was a very, very tense negotiation. But in the end, it worked. Russia received the Sakhalin Islands, Japan got to keep Korea, and Manchuria was returned to China. And for his efforts, Roosevelt received the Nobel Peace Prize. So, what was Roosevelt's greatest accomplishment? Was it starting the building of the Panama Canal? Was it busting up all those monopolies? Was it stopping the Russian and Japanese War, Meat Inspection Act, Food and Drug Administration? Roosevelt would probably say that it was conserving our natural resources. For Roosevelt, all this land and water that we had out there was the most important thing that we could do was to keep them. Not just for his generation, but for centuries and centuries to come. So what did he do as a conservationist? Listen to this. 5 national parks, 4 game refuges, 16 national monuments, 51 national bird reservations. He also brought down water against strong odds and being pushed back by big business. He built dams and brought water and irrigation to many, many lands. All, in a nutshell, Roosevelt saved 230 million acres of wildlife and land. A stupendous achievement. Now, Roosevelt was the first president to travel to a foreign country when he went to see the construction of Panama. He was also the first president to ride in an airplane. Now, Roosevelt decided not to run for a third term, but he picked his friend William Howard Taft, Secretary of War, to become the next president. Taft ran, and with Roosevelt's blessings, well, he won the election handily. But Roosevelt felt that Taft had betrayed his legacy, and 4 years later, he did decide to run for a third term. He fought for the nomination of the Republican Party. Well, Taft felt betrayed. He fought for the nomination, and they called each other names like fathead and stupid. And then when Taft got the nomination, well, Roosevelt decided to run on his own. He formed his own party, the Progressives. Well, while he was out there campaigning one day, an insane man went out and shot Theodore Roosevelt. Shot him in the chest. And what did Roosevelt do? Well, people were out there to see him with a bullet in his chest. He gave a speech for 1 hour. Stood there for 1 hour, and people saw that it was a heroic effort. But it didn't do any good. In the end, Roosevelt did not win the election, and neither did Taft. Instead, a Democrat, Woodrow Wilson, became president. And then began World War I. Well, after the presidency, Theodore Roosevelt had a lot of time on his hands. So he decided to go to South America and explore the Amazons along with his son Kermit. He wrote a book about his explorations. Now, this practically ruined Theodore Roosevelt's health. There were stories about near insanity, near starvation. Roosevelt himself caught malaria. They had to carry him for a long time, but they made it back, but he was never the same. Roosevelt had 6 kids. The oldest, Alice Lee. She was the wild one. Remember her biological mother, Roosevelt's first wife, died when she was days old. Her dad was kind of absent, but anyway, she was wild, played poker games, would smoke in public, and she would jump into the swimming pool in major functions. I mean, Roosevelt had a real headache. She married a man named Longworth. It was a bad marriage and lasted about 30 years, though. She died at 96 in the year 1980. She was a socialite honored by all presidents up to Jimmy Carter. Second child, Theodore Roosevelt Jr., an impressive man all on his own, became governor of the Philippines, governor of Puerto Rico. He fought in World War I and World War II, won the Medal of Honor, Purple Heart, and several other medals, became a brigadier general. At the age of 56, he stormed the beaches of Normandy under heavy fire, where, unfortunately, he suffered a heart attack, died at 56. Roosevelt's next son, Kermit, World War I and World War II veteran, writer, and explorer. Unfortunately, suffered depression and was an alcoholic. Committed suicide at 53. Ethel. She participated in World War I as a nurse and later joined the Red Cross. She took care of Sagamore Hill and died in 1977 at the age of 86. Archibald, called Archie by his friends, World War I and World War II veteran, businessman, owned a brokerage house. But his activism was controversial. He would try to root out socialists, sometimes attacking black leaders as submersives. He died of a stroke at the age of 85. The youngest, Quentin Roosevelt, unfortunately died in World War I. He was a pilot. His plane was shot down over France. His parents, Theodore and wife Edith, were never the same. Well, after that, Roosevelt got sicker and sicker, and on January 6, 1919, Roosevelt died in his sleep. A friend said, if death had not caught him asleep, there would have been a fight. But anyway, that's it for now for Cool Talk. Comment below, or better yet, subscribe.